Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Good to see you again, and I know I haven't been uploading a lot recently. I've been a little sick. You might be able to still hear it in my voice, but I'm feeling much better now, which is great. But I had a couple games that I played in my 9-1 second place Treasure Cup run that I thought were kind of educational, but also just interesting as a whole. And I know that a lot of matchups seem to be pretty difficult or pretty polarizing for some people to handle, and I think that Black Yellow Luffy is obviously one of those. Black Yellow Luffy is arguably, I would say arguably, this deck's worst matchup, but I don't know. I feel like the more that I've learned to play against the deck, it doesn't feel that bad. I feel like I have to draw pretty poorly to lose out into Black Yellow Luffy more often than not, but my opponent got to take second here. Obviously, I'm looking to take second in this matchup as much as possible, but being able to put down brand new, I pick up Borsalino. Pretty much all of your blockers are so important in this matchup, it's not even funny. So, unfortunately, I did put a Sabo into trash with the brand new, but the nice thing is Rebecca does allow me to potentially get that back. But with Makino, my opponent was able to set up his life pretty nicely and get a fairly good start into this game. He is going to get the Sabo onto the board, get down to that 2-life range. Does put the Ace and Luffy into trash. So getting rid of some of the 5 costs, having them in trash is really nice for my opponent. He's also going to get a Garp down for a search here, which is really nice. This is, by the way, this is very important for me to say. My opponent that I'm playing against right here, this was actually his first online tournament. And he said that, you know, he was going to make some mistakes. And he does. He makes a mistake or two here or there. But I'll point them out and maybe where he could have capitalized a little more. But we're going to see an 8k to life. I go ahead and take that. Off the Garp, he picked up the Rocket Luffy as well. So 5-cost Luffy is amazing. I would love to play Sabo here with 5 Dawn, and it looks as though we do end up having it, which is fantastic. I get to cycle out my hand a little bit. I want to get rid of a lot of dead cards. There's just cards in this matchup that do me absolutely nothing. So as far as like Hina, I don't really care too much about Hina in this matchup. Yeah, so I end up dropping, ironically, a Hina right here. I might be looking for maybe like a 1k counter that might be useful off of a Moria play, so getting my brand news into trash, as well as, oh, it looks like I cycle out a Borsalino. So that means that, usually speaking, I have a good amount of blockers already in hand if I'm feeling freely enough to just drop one. I also could potentially have a Moria, but I know that, you know, my play is to starve out my opponent. I'm not attacking into his life. I want to force him to continuously use, you know, cards to get down to that 0. And then I'm just going to keep playing down, you know, high-cost cards. I want to see my 6-cost Sakazuki potentially for this turn, depending on what my opponent does. But arguably, just having the card on board is so helpful in this matchup already. So it's kind of like I'll probably be playing it no matter what. And yeah, I believe that he does pick up another Sabo off of the 1-cost event. Leaves him with 5 Dawn still to work with. He already dropped the 5-cost Luffy that would allow him to, you know, get some of his life down. So I'm actually pretty happy about that. But a 5k swing into life, I want to stay as healthy as possible. I could block with Sabo here if I don't believe that he'll play like Rush Ace, or I don't think that he'll swing with his blocker Sabo. I don't believe that he will right here, and if he does, I'm totally fine with it. So we're just going to see him rest 5. I get the free block, so I don't have to waste a card from hand. He is just going to play the Rocket Luffy, though, and pass. I like the idea that he was going for here, saving Rocket Luffy for another turn, but unfortunate for my opponent, I do end up having the direct answer to this, and I can't tell you, or I can't express enough how important this card is in this matchup. But 6-cost Sakazuki is invaluable in this matchup. It's so unbelievably good. As soon as I'm able to play this, I trash another Borsalino. Good God, is my hand just like completely just blockers? I guess it is. But yeah, I get to KO a 5-cost, so I'm going to get rid of the Rocket Luffy. I'm just going to pass here. But the reason why Sakazuki is so good is because being able to just simply attach 2 Dawn to him and then still have 8 Dawn to play with is everything in this matchup. Because now I can swing 9 into his 9k leader very comfortably with Sokka and still play a Moria. I could still play an Isho. I can double blocker with, you know, 2 Borsalinos or Rebecca Borsalino. So it just allows me to have something else to do a second 9k swing. If you don't have Sakazuki on board and you're just relying on your Morias and your Ishos, you're going to be swinging either 9 or 11 with that same character, and it just doesn't feel as good as multiple 9s so that you're getting multiple cards out of hand or potentially multiple blocks. So Sakazuki just being able to remove any of the 5-cost Luffys, the aces, stuff like that, really annoying cards, is really solid. It looks as though he does attach 3 Dawn to lead here. When he does this, he puts 3 Dawn to the side of his leader, but that's him attaching it. I do end up taking this. It would be nice to give him 2 2Ks and get out, but I realized that my following turn is going to be really powerful with an 8-drop play. So I'm fine with just taking the hit here while I still have a blocker and while I'm still feeling like really good about it. But he cycles out a couple cards with his Sabo. Looks like it was a Luffy. No, both Luffys. Rocket Luffy as well as Starter Deck Luffy. And now with 9 Dawn, I mean, I have Isho, I have Moria. I can swing into his lead, but there's no point. So I'd actually just go ahead and play the Isho down. I want to get as many cards as possible out of his hand. It looks as though he was perfectly at 6 too, which is fantastic. So we go through the motions of selecting the cards. My goal here is to obviously hit Moria. If I can hit Moria, Isho just gained an insane amount of value. If I don't hit Moria, then what I'm really looking for at this exact moment is like Self-Awakener cards. I want to hit Flampe. I want to hit Hiyori. I want to hit Makino. Any of those cards while he's at 2 life make me feel very, very good. I know that he has a lot of his 5-cost Luffys in trash too, so I'm expecting my opponent at this point to have a lot of Self-Awakeners, but unfortunately, I think I end up hitting, I believe it was Luffy right there, and then on the second roll, I end up hitting a Rocket Luffy, so not the best hits. But I do bring him down to 4 cards in hand, which is still massive. Just getting him to that point is very useful for me because now he's going to be very reliant on having, you know, those Self-Awakeners to get to 0, and his hand size is not going to be as great as he wants it to. So yeah, and I'm just explaining to him right here because he actually hadn't seen Isho very much, that if I attach a Dawn to it, you know, it's -3 to the whole board, which is very relevant. Isho is it's so fantastic in this matchup. It's not even funny because if he's not able to Sabo every single turn, then an Absalom in trash or an Absalom in hand just becomes, you know, me attaching 1 to Isho and bringing down all of his 5 costs to 2 and just removing and going for game. So I'm really happy about how this has gone so far. It also feels as though my opponent doesn't want to swing with his blockers or be aggressive with them as much as possible, especially now that, like, I think he could have earlier, but now that we're at this stage of the game, it just doesn't feel like he's gonna risk it too much. But he gets the ace out since he knows his life off the Makino play on turn 1. And he also gets Flampe to go ahead and draw a card here. He's now at 0, which is nice, but he's got limited Dawn to work with. The leader is 7k, so I'm kind of like, dang, I'm probably going to end up taking 1 more hit this turn. It's more than I would like to, but he trashes the Kid Ace right here, and now he's able to go ahead and put 2 cards into life. I know that just with how much Dawn he has remaining, it's going to be an ace swing as well as a leader swing. And I don't know if he's going to go to 9k on lead or if he's going to stay at 7. But either way, it's still going to be 2 very strong attacks coming in. But he puts both Rocket Luffys into life. And this is pretty relevant because, you know, it kind of tells me like, all right, so no Sabo play gives me, you know, potential removal here. But he does get out 1 Rocket Luffy, bringing leader up to 9, and now has an opportunity to remove brand new. But I was thinking with how much Dawn he had left that maybe we were going to be seeing like an Ice Age here. But he only has 3 cards in hand. This Isho did absolute work. And, you know, Flampe, yeah, sure, getting down to 0, it still just doesn't feel as great. So he's just going to swing 10 into life here, though, and I'll take it. And then it's going to be a 9k swing. And I don't want to take... I don't want to go to 0 here. So he is just going to use the Rocket Luffy, though, to KO brand new. Just to get another card in hand. So I don't blame him on that front. But 9k into life, I really don't want to go down to 1. That's not where I'd like to be. So I do decide to just go ahead and block. I would have preferred not to block here. But unfortunately I wasn't able to set up another, like a second blocker earlier on in this match. I know that I had a Moria in hand, so that's I think why I put Borsalino into play, but my curve honestly was great. It would have been better clearly going second, but still great nonetheless. Right now I know that I'm not going to be able to get through 2 blocks, and I would rather swing into a 7 than a 9. So I swing 7 into his ace and he gives me a 2k. I definitely feel like this was a mistake on my opponent's behalf. I'm going to keep taking free cards out of hand. He's obviously trying to keep his board, you know, pretty healthy so that, you know, maybe he has some play to go for game the following turn, this, that, and the other. I'm just buying time. I want to play a blocker. I want to play things. So I get another 2k out of his hand, and I'm going to swing into ace one more time with Isho. I'm going to do 9k to ace, and then he's, if I remember correctly, just going to block with Sabo. So having Sabo in trash is very helpful for him. I arguably could have not swung, but I knew that since I was only playing 1 blocker, that he might be able to pressure me enough here and get me to, you know, a life that I don't want to be at. But brand new, unfortunately, whiffs, but it puts very useful cards into trash for me. I get an Absalom into trash, so it does give me a way to potentially use, you know, that Isho Absalom that I was talking about and get rid of his Sabo and go for game. But I mean, look at our board. My hand size is extremely healthy too. I have like 7 to 8 cards. I've been playing 1 card per turn, so I haven't really been going down much. I've been taking life when he swings, you know, particular numbers. Other times I just got free blocks, so I didn't have to waste cards. But we do see him putting down the Moria, so he's going to go ahead and play down Luffy and Sabo. Yeah, the Luffy and Sabo here is definitely solid for, you know, for my opponent, but that's why I decided to go with Borsalino, because Borsalino is Black Yellow Luffy's like kryptonite. He can play the Rocket Luffy, but it does nothing because I'm just laughing like, aha, you can't do anything against my Borsalino with the Rocket Luffy. So I'm very happy about, you know, where we're at right now. He decides to get Ace and Sabo into life. Gets the Sabo out, so he can now get up to a 9k on lead, but now he's going to be at 1 card in hand. So he cycles out both a baby Sabo and a 5 cost, 1 card in hand. The only cards that he can attack with are Ace and Leader. And he also has the Rocket Luffy to potentially pop the brand new to get a 2nd card, which is relevant because if he doesn't do that, he actually ends up being in a really tough spot. And I'll explain why in just a second. But he does get that draw right there. He's going to swing 7 here, but I have like 8 cards in hand. So I'm feeling good. 7 to life, I don't really want to give him 2 cards for that. So I'm actually fine with, I want to, 1, keep the blocker on board, but I also want to protect the rest of my board if he were to go for it after the ace swing. So I know that I have plenty of counter right now. I'm feeling good about it. With the 7, I'm just taking my time and thinking about, you know, how many swings am I going to have next turn to go for what? Do I want to play another blocker the following turn, or am I going to, you know, try and do another Moria, or am I going to try and swing out for game? But I give him a Borsellino block and a 2K right here, and now he's got an 11K swing, potentially coming in either at Isho or Sakazuki or leader. I think that his best bet is to probably try and go for Sakazuki, but it's only 3 cards from my hand, and I have like 7. I think I have like 7 cards in hand. And I know that as long as I just play one more blocker the following turn, I've pretty much got this game wrapped up. You know, I'm going to force my opponent to have to get rid of, you know, his blockers the following turn by swinging into his life. His ace is most definitely going to die. So I give him 2 2Ks and another Borsellino. So I saw like all of my Borsellinos this match, you know, which is just fantastic. I mean, the card is super good into this matchup, and yeah, I felt like I was drawing exactly what I needed. There we go. He just passes. I draw for turn, and now I'm just going to be yet again pressuring hand size and board state. So if I swing 7 into ace, sure, give me a counter. I don't care. I'm just I'm literally just going for everything that you have in hand and on board. So I'm going to actually just swing 7 into his ace. And the reason why it was important for him to use Rocket Luffy the previous turn is because had he not, I actually had game guaranteed. I would have been able to go 5 9Ks at his life, and there was no way he would have been able to get out of it. But since he has that extra card in hand now, there is a potential chance that he's able to counter out of everything if I go for game. And then he would actually have enough swings to potentially KO me the following turn. So I decided, all right, I don't have to worry. I don't have to like play crazy. I can just swing, you know, aggressively and see what my opponent does. So I'm gonna swing another 9 into life. He thinks about blocking here, but he realizes that, yeah, it kind of sucks. I don't want to lose the Sabo, but at the same time, like, I'm in this spot where he has to have enough swings the following turn, and I just decide to go 11 into ace. So this either forces him to block or it forces him to let the ace go out of life, and I'll just play down another Borsellino. Yeah, I knew that I had it all. I just had exactly the blockers that I wanted, and you know, optimally, this is what I'm looking for, though. I'm cycling out my cards to try and see my blockers. I want to use Moria to recur a blocker each time and, you know, stop all of these like massive attacks, clearing my board, but also taking my life. He does use 2 Dawn to bring out the ace, but I believe that he ends up realizing that he made a bit of a mistake. And that's why I said, like, you know, my opponent this was his first online match, and he made a bit of a mistake here. He ended up doing that when he had a Moria in hand, and he could have just played Moria, got 2 of the kids out, and, you know, put some stuff up. But unfortunately, I don't think it was saving him either way. With us having the 2 blockers, plenty of counter in hand, Isho, Moria, and Sakazuki to swing into, you know, his life the following turn, he really didn't have many options, and Moria still wouldn't have saved him because he would have been at 0 cards in hand. But he does decide to, yeah, just swing, I think, like 11 or something like that, or like 10 here into my life. I go ahead and take because it doesn't matter. The following turn is just going to, you know, be the deciding factor anyways. But he swings very strong again. I do decide to just block this. And then I think it's like a 9K with lead. Doesn't matter where it goes. But yeah, with how many life my opponent has and how many swings I have, we just end up taking it here. But this is what I'm usually like trying to do in this matchup, is stay healthy, get counter out of those early, you know, cheap swings, like the 5s, the 6s, stuff like that. You don't want to take a life unless it's for, you know, unless you have to drop 2 cards from hand. You know, that's my goal every single time, is like, if I have to drop 2 cards from hand, then I'm thinking whether I want to counter or not. But just swing for game here. We end up taking this. This was game 2 for me during this day. I ended up playing 3 Black Yellow Luffys that day, and I lost to 1 in the finals, but ironically, I would have won the game. And so that's actually a video that I'm going to go over too, that I thought was really good. Fantastic game, but it was interesting that I would have won it had I not conceded, but I was dead tired that day. I thought I was done. I was like, yep, you got it, man, no worries. And yeah, I love that this matchup has actually become very routine for me now, and I feel really nice into Black Yellow Luffy. But I have some great games coming up as well. I'm going to be going over a match against Nami, a match against Bonnie, a match against Lucci, and a match against Enel. Yeah, so I'm going to have a couple of those where I just think that, you know, if you can see the curve that you want and you can try and play around, you know, your opponent's potential cards or potential answers, you know, I think that this deck is super solid. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this style of video of just kind of going over some of the games that I played previously. And other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. All right, peace.